Hope everyone is having a fantastic day today. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Olivia. I appreciate you spending 15, 20 minutes of your time with me today. Hope you can hear me. Got my mic on. Something that I want to talk about today. In life, you have role models. In life, you have people that are examples of how to be, people who have qualities that you want to attain or you want to develop. And then you have people in life that are an example or a representation of what not to be. And I have noticed in life, at least from my personal experience, things that I've seen, things that I've heard, things that I have experienced, and things have also seen, but was maybe too young to notice what I was looking at. There's just a lot of things that have been revealed to me that a lot of people do, but and not do to each other, not in a good way. That is not healthy, very dysfunctional. And as I've gotten older and have connected to the dots to a lot of things and just started just I would see something and then be like, there's a reason for that. And then I'd be like, oh, that was why, as I've gotten older, having those enlightenments. Um, I have realized that there is a lot of hurting people out there in the world. When you're young, you think, oh, if I'm nice to everybody, everybody will be nice to me. I mean, some people are like that. You can do that to some people. But I've noticed there's just a lot of people out there that are really hurting. I don't know what. And it's amazing to me as I've researched and studied psychology more and more and more. It's amazing to me how everything stems from childhood. Every single person, even the worst, quote unquote, what we call the worst of the worst people, something made them that way. Something exposed them to that. But it's just I wouldn't say fascinating because I don't want to be entertained or find bad things that people do exciting, but it's just I have learned a lot from a lot of experiences I have experienced and seen, secondhand, third hand, first hand. There's just a lot of people out there that are suffering, and that everybody suffers through something, but and yet I feel like there's two types of people. There's people that they suffer through something and they want to use what they went through as a positive to help someone else going through the exact same thing, or because they went through a rough part in their life, rough childhood, made them a kind, loving person because they didn't want to be what they experienced. And there's people out there that unfortunately they repeat that behavior, what they seen when they were a child. And something that I want to talk about today that I have experienced that people do, just these psychological games that people like to play with people, this psychological warfare. It's almost like people don't want to attack you physically. Well, I mean, some people do, but people don't want to attack you physically because that's too visible. But what people will do is they'll play these mind games with you. It's what I call psychological warfare, what a lot of people call. So it's harder to detect, it's harder to see, it's less visible. People call you crazy because they themselves don't see it. But something that I want to talk about today is that I find this I don't want to say interesting or fascinating because like I said, I don't want to be somewhat entertained by what the things that people do, which is not the best. Let's just go straight into it. There are people out there who will mistreat you, but will do horrible things to you, but in a way will demand your presence, which I'm like, how are you gonna hate someone, have a strong dislike for someone, but and yet demand them to be around? And I've seen this and I've experienced this myself. And then I come to realize that, I mean, this is not hard to understand, but a lot of people are deeply insecure. And people like that who mistreat you, but and yet still want you around, they use like control, they use conflict, they use emotional abuse to feel powerful, to feel validated because they do not potentially they feel bad about themselves and they want to bring you down to that level. And it's almost like people often crave this negative reaction that you can give them, that you provide. And so you're being treated as a source of supply rather than a person, rather than a human being with feelings and emotions. And it's almost like this mentality that what is it? Maybe it's not dynamic, but this behavior that I have seen of people will want you somewhere, but don't really. People will want you somewhere and get mad that you're there, but then yet people want you there, but then get even more mad when you're not there. So I'm like, what? That doesn't even make sense to me, probably because I do not have the capacity to understand it. Because even myself, if I was in that position, why would I want to do that to someone else? But it's almost like I have realized that there's like this need of control and power that people have when they're deeply insecure. And they may feel threatened by your confidence, by your success, by your independence, by the way that you carry yourself. And it's almost like they treat you bad. They treat you bad mentally and emotionally, these psychological games people like to play to maintain a dominant position. And it's like you're their supply. They rely on the emotional turmoil that they can cause in you, the mental turmoil they can cause on you, these little psychological games that you feel like you're running around in circles because they have an actual need, which is very sad. A lot of people have an actual need to see you hurt. A lot of people have an actual need to see you upset because it makes them feel better about themselves. It makes them feel satisfied in a weird, malicious, very toxic way. And I feel like it's a lot from this unresolved trauma, which I don't know where it comes from, but also this unresolved immaturity. It's like their actions, people will do this. It's often stemmed from like a deep seated emotional issues or deep seated insecurity issues or mental, I don't know. But they come from deep seated issues and they stem from this rather than rational feelings towards you. And it's almost like what it is deflection. People are deflecting by making you the target of their rage. They are avoiding facing their own shortcomings because they are projecting all the feelings that they have onto about themselves onto you. They just don't want to take accountability and take responsibility for how they feel. So you are like the what is it, the not the humanized, but you are like the human representation of just maybe everything they want to be and they attack it. um what else? Just like I said, you make them potentially see their own shortcomings, and that in a way attacking you helps them to avoid their shortcomings in a way. But it's like there's people out there that have this like emotional punching bag dynamic. For some, having you, having potentially you around serves as a release valve for their own internal frustrations about the way they feel about themselves. You know, people don't want you there. People don't want, maybe because you bring too much attention, because they know, people know that when you walk into the room all the attention is going to be on you. They don't like the way that you carry yourself, your success, your independence, the way you're comfortable in your own skin. And it's almost like people will specifically want you in these circumstances to talk and mistreat you, and not only talk bad about you but mistreat you as well. And like I said, it's like they don't want you there because they enjoy your company. They want you there because you are like a target to them, like a bullseye. As soon as you walk in, you a bullseye and they got all the arrows pointed at you. And like I said, it is this deadly projection that people have. They feel horrible about themselves, very insecure. So they often use you to offload that bad feeling, to let it all out, like they at a gun range or like they shooting arrows and you're the bullseye, just letting the arrows fly. And it's almost like when you don't put yourself in situations where you know you're going to be mistreated and you know there's like these psychological games people like to play, when you don't put yourself in those positions, I have realized that the people that their goal is to mistreat you, abuse you, mentally and emotionally, all kinds of ways. They lose almost, not almost, they lose their outlet. They become angry at your absence. And I feel like it's actually because of withdrawal, because it's like a withdrawal from the emotional feeling or this emotional relief they get from putting you down. And that's why I have come to realize it is extremely important for you not to be in places where you're not wanted. It is extremely important to not put yourself in uncomfortable places where, like I said, where you're not wanted, where you're not loved, where you're going to be treated poorly. Because it's almost like when people treat you poorly and you still continue to put yourselves in those situations, it's almost like you're giving people the okay to continue to treat you horribly. It gives people a massive ego boost. It proves to them that they have somewhat of this power over you. And people will also do this as well. They will test your boundaries. Every time that you return after you've been mistreated, it signals to people that, oh, she's okay with this behavior. Oh, he's okay with this behavior. They're okay with this behavior. This is good behavior. This is allowable. I need to keep on doing this. There's no problem with it. I can treat people however they want to be treated, horribly, and they'll still come back to me, which is not a good thing. And when you start telling people no, that especially when you start telling people no that they have never heard the word no before, when you don't show up and when you don't put yourselves in uncomfortable situations, it's almost like you reclaim just the energy. You reclaim your energy. And it's like your independence can be your independence, the way that you carry yourself, your confidence can be like an attack to people, or it's almost like they lose a sense of ownership to you. A lot of people genuinely fear being afraid. I mean, genuinely fear being alone, but and yet lack the emotional tools to treat people right, and yet to keep them around. Lack the mental, emotional, just like I said, the tools overall to just treat people the way you want to be treated, just for you to have good people, nice people, keep people around you. And it's almost, and honestly, what it is when someone treats you bad, let's be real point blank honest. I don't care who they are, family, friends, I don't care. When someone treats you bad, they think very poorly of you. You hear me? When someone treats you bad, they do not like you at all. Because when someone loves you, that's not even a thought in their mind to treat you bad. And so it's almost like when you start pulling away and you stop putting yourselves in situations where you didn't ask to be, or where you're not going to get the respect that you deserve, it's almost like people get upset. This fear of abandonment kicks in, and they get mad and they get aggressive and they get angry because they're losing that sense of control, and will try to force you back into the cycle. And so what I have learned when I have dealt, I let me tell you, there are many topics that I eventually want to talk about. This is not the only one that hit on some points that I have experienced, because people around me, people that like to play these psychological warfare games, people like to play with your mind. And it's just very important for you that if you're dealing, because I've dealt with it, if you're dealing with this, it's important for you to realize that, in a way, logic cannot win. And you may be like, what do you mean by that? You cannot explain your way. You cannot explain your way into being treated better by someone who constantly gets this like high and relief off treating you bad. Meaning, you're bargaining for someone to treat you better when this person has shown you many, many, many times again, not even a person, people have shown you many, many times again that they do not value you, that they will continue to mistreat you. It's almost like you talking to a brick wall, because they've already made the decision of who you are in their minds, what you mean to them, and they're treating you based off what they think. It it just doesn't make sense continuing to explain yourself to someone who will continue to misunderstand you and treat you horribly. And so one thing that I didn't even realize that I was doing in this, I didn't even realize that there was actual scientific there's a word for this, phrase. is like the gray rock method. You have to make yourself, you know, well, certain people I make myself this way, not to everybody, but you have to make yourself almost like a gray rock. Gray rock. Very boring, very basic, very just every day. You see this all the time. You gotta start giving people um, short answers, answers that lack emotion, because a lot of people feed off reaction. A lot of people feed off, I don't know, a lot of people just feed off reaction, whether it's good or bad. They want this kind of interchange of just energy. And when you don't give people that, when you stop adding fuel or adding fuel to the fire, basically, the fire is going to go out. And also, like I said, just stop over explaining, because I feel like when you stop arguing, stop defending, stop explaining, stop justifying. I think it's jading, is what I call it, because it's just giving people more ammunition to treat you horribly. It's like you're bargaining for better treatment, or you trying to make sense of it from even your own perspective, or you trying to tell them as to why they need to stop this. They've already made their decision and they're not changing. You know, stop giving people so many explanations as well. You know, I just can't go. Simple as that. And this is another thing. Ask yourself these questions. What am I getting out of this? What is the investment? Why? But why? But why? Why? What am I getting out of this? What is this trying to teach me? How am I going to feel? All these things. When you start realizing that there's really no return on your investment, it's time to take a leave. Excuse me. And something that I have learned that was a very hard truth, that at least in the situations that I have gone through and I've seen people go through, a lot of people aren't mad that they miss you. Excuse me. A lot of people aren't mad because they miss you. A lot of people are upset because they have lost access to you. And you have to realize, I had to realize this myself. There is a big, huge difference between being seen as a friend, or being seen as a source of support, being seen as a source of stabilization, like you're always there for people. There is a difference between being wanted and being needed as a tool. And it's just this weird passive aggression, this weird thing where it's just a lot of weird stuff going on, that really, unfortunately, very just games people like to play with people, because they feel horrible about themselves and they feel as though playing with you will make them feel better about themselves. I personally don't get it. I don't think it's ever will get it. And this is my thing. Like I said, I don't want to get it, because then that means that I have to somewhat understand and sympathize with whatever that means. And I don't think I ever want to sympathize and understand what that means, because that means that I go there and I can understand it. But it's just a lot of things that I have seen and I have experienced at the hands of people. And I'm like, it just got the head, the brain, the neurons firing. I'm like, people get upset. Well, that may be for another video. What it is too is a lot of people do not want you in spaces, because they know that when you show up, everything potentially may shift to you, whether it's your confidence, the way that you carry yourself. They're no longer the main source of the topic. People may feel like you disrupt the group dynamic. They challenge their control. Maybe your presence reminds them of a lot of the things that they dislike about you. It triggers frustration, resentment, anger. I don't know. There's just a lot of projection that people will do to you. Their anger might not be coming from you, but from their own discomfort. But yet they will project onto you. And then people don't like it when you don't put yourselves in uncomfortable spaces, because your absence creates a void, and it lets them know that they cannot control you. And it makes them think that, okay, I don't have as much power that as I thought I did. And it's almost just like there's like this a resentment that you're going to abandon me, this fear of abandonment. What I've had to do in these situations, like I said, be that gray rock. I've stopped explaining myself. I don't explain nothing no more. You heard me the first time. I don't need to explain why I said yes, and I don't need to explain why I said no. That's just the answer. What is it they say? No is a complete sentence. It's just a sentence. No. But also, what you can do is you need to set. I have learned to set more boundaries with people. You don't have to say yes to every single thing that you're invited to, and you don't have to say no to every single thing that you're invited to. You just need to set boundaries. Now, stop overextending yourself, especially overextending yourself when you know you're not wanted in specific places. Also, observe patterns as well. Also, self-reflect. Ask yourself these questions of, what am I getting out of this? What is this going to teach me? How am I going to feel? All this stuff. You also, one of the most important things is you need to focus on your peace. You have to recognize that a lot of people's anger and frustration and whatever things they're trying to project onto you is just a reflection of a lot of internal issues. It's not necessarily a reflection of your worth. And like I said, you're going to have to somewhat detach mentally and emotionally, because a lot of people are seeking a reaction. Don't allow people's words, don't allow what people do to trigger a reaction out of you. Just continue to maintain a calm, indifferent, polite, nonchalant, somewhat demeanor. And if things continue to get worse, you're going to have to cut some people go. Who said cutting people off was a bad thing? Who said limiting your contact with people was a bad thing? It seems like to me everybody that's upset by it is the people that have been cut off from stuff. And which I don't know why. Who knows why those situations happen, but who says that every single person on this earth deserves so much access to you? Ever said blocking people was a bad thing? Whoever said like I said, cutting people off, limiting stuff. When did that ever become a bad thing that you couldn't do that all of a sudden? But anyway, you may have to cut some people off in order for you to have peace, in order for you to have calmness, understanding, be grounded in who you are, all these things, stillness, calm nervous system. And one of the most important things as well is you just got to start saying no, and you got to stop people pleasing people. Something that I have learned a lot within the last couple of years. Stop people pleasing people. Okay? People aren't even satisfied with themselves, and you try to please people, someone who is never going to be satisfied, because people aren't even satisfied with themselves. It's just like this endless cycle that a lot of people are in, that really a lot of humans are in, because humans, we're just very hard to please. And it's like we're almost this never satisfied thing. And so, you know, it's just, I don't know. Anyway, but you also have, like I said, you just got to stop always trying to people please people and start saying no. Because I feel like when you say no to someone based off the reaction or not, tells you, okay, I need to start doing this some more. Obviously, you haven't heard no enough. I need to keep on doing this. And just, I just hope this video was a source of encouragement to someone who is just going through a lot of psychological warfare games that people like to play. Actually, well, that's a whole nother. That's getting kind of, never mind. But it's just, you're in the heat of it, it can feel very intense. When you're in the you're really in the storm, it can feel very intense. But just letting you know, there is a brighter horizon. There is a positive. Eventually, you're going to get to that positive side in this, where everything that is thrown at you, that people throw at you, these psychological warfare games people have, it is going to make you stronger as a person overall. And you're going to turn that pain into purpose, because you're going to use whatever that you went through to help someone else who may be going through the exact same thing. It's just using whatever you went through for good, using whatever you went through for someone else, like I said, who was going through the exact same thing. But that's just something that I wanted to talk about today. Um, like I said, I got a lot more topics that I could talk about, but you know what? Those are for future videos. But I hope everyone has a fantastic day today. Today was a beautiful day, at least where I live. And I'll see you guys next time. Oh, this too. Never mind.